It was a cold night on the once thriving planet of Dathar. The gleaming cities, towering structures of gold and silver, and bustling marketplaces were now dark and silent. In the once vibrant capital, the neon lights flickered and went out, one by one. The streets, once filled with the echoes of laughter and trade, were now eerily quiet. Xilith, the patriarch of the Xathari family, stood at the entrance of their mansion, staring out into the blackness of the sky. His breath came out in short bursts, his 3 hearts beating faster than they should, a sign of his growing anxiety. Behind him, his wife, Zara, and their children, Vorn and Lyra, stood silently, their faces masks of worry and despair. "We need to leave," Xilith said, his voice strained. "The humans have done their part. It's time for us to escape." Zara placed a comforting hand on his shoulder, but her touch did little to ease the gnawing fear in his chest. "We can't leave. Not now. Not when our people are gone." The Xathari were once a proud species, masters of technology, merchants of peace, and allies to many. They had thrived in the universe for centuries. They were a peaceful species, known for their wisdom and their advanced knowledge of science and philosophy. However, things had changed when the Great War broke out across the galaxy. The Xathari had been caught in the middle of the conflict, torn between their alliances with the powerful Tirok Empire and the more peaceful humans. The war had raged on for years, but the Tirok Empire had begun to withdraw, leaving the Xathari stranded and vulnerable. The humans, too, had been fighting a bitter struggle to protect their own borders, and while they had once stood by the Xathari, they now had their own problems to deal with. They had abandoned the Xathari, leaving them to face their enemies alone. The Xathari had begged for help, but it came too late. Now, their planet was on the verge of collapse. The Tirok Empire had taken control of the majority of the land, leaving the Xathari people to live in fear and despair. The once great civilization was now a shadow of its former self. Xilith knew what had to be done. He had to get his family to safety before it was too late. The humans had offered a glimmer of hope, but they had their own problems to handle. They couldn't be expected to save everyone. "Father," Vorn spoke up, his voice trembling. "Where are we going to go? The ships are all gone. The humans are the only ones left who could help us." Xilith turned to his son, his face full of pain. "I don't know, Vorn, but we can't stay here. We have to try." It was then that a soft, steady voice interrupted them. "You are not alone." Xilith spun around, his heart's racing. Standing in the doorway of their home was a human, an officer in a military uniform. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with short-cropped hair and a calm, determined expression. Behind him, a small group of soldiers stood, their eyes scanning the surroundings. You came," Xilith said, barely able to believe it. "I thought you had abandoned us." The human officer gave him a small smile. "We never abandoned you, Xilith. The humans are not like that. You're here to help us?" Zara asked, her voice filled with hope. "We're here to help you get out of here. The rest of your people may have lost hope, but we have it. We'll get you to safety." Zara stepped forward, her face filled with disbelief. "But we thought the war was over, that we were abandoned. Why come now?" The officer's expression softened. "The war isn't over, but our mission isn't either. We don't leave our allies behind, and we don't leave families to die." Xilith could feel the weight of the officer's words, and for the first time in weeks, a small flicker of hope began to grow in his chest. The humans, the very people who had been fighting their own battles, were still willing to extend their hands to the Xathari. They hadn't turned their backs on them like everyone else. "How did you find us?" Xilith asked, his voice a mix of curiosity and gratitude. "We have our ways," the officer said with a faint smile. "But we've been tracking the Tirok movements for some time. We knew they would eventually make their move. We've been preparing for this moment. The family stood there in stunned silence. The humans had not only come to their aid, but had been preparing for this rescue for far longer than they had realized. "Where are the other Xathari?" Lyra, Zilith's youngest child, asked in a soft voice. "Where are our people?" The officer's expression darkened, and Zilith's heart sank as he realized the grim truth. "They're gone," the officer said quietly. "The Tirok have taken control of most of your cities. The rest of your people are either prisoners or dead." The words hit like a punch to the gut. Zilith had known the situation was dire, but hearing it spoken aloud made it all the more real. His people were gone. The dream of a united Xathari civilization had been shattered. But there was still hope for his family. "We don't have much time," the officer continued. "The Tirok will be coming for you soon. We've prepared a ship that can get you out of here, but you'll have to move quickly. They've already detected our presence." Zilith looked at his family. They had been through so much already, too much. But now they had a chance to survive, a chance to escape. He could hardly believe it. The humans, who had once been just another species in the galaxy, had become their saviors. "Are you ready?" the officer asked, his voice steady. Zilith looked at his wife, his children, and then back to the officer. For the first time in weeks, he felt something he hadn't felt in so long: hope. "Yes," Zilith said, his voice firm. "We are ready." The family quickly gathered their things, packing what little they could carry. As they made their way through the dark streets of their city, the human soldiers led them to a hidden landing site where a sleek, advanced ship awaited them. It was a far cry from the majestic Xathari vessels, but it was a lifeline. As they boarded the ship, Zilith turned one last time to look at the world they were leaving behind. The once proud planet of Dathar was now a graveyard for his people, its future uncertain. But the future of his family, his wife, his children, and himself was still unwritten. With a final glance at the planet he had once called home, Zilith entered the ship. The hatch closed behind him, and the ship began to rise into the dark sky, leaving the ashes of Dathar below. The humans had not abandoned them. They had come when it mattered most, and now Zilith realized they were not just allies, they were friends. And as the ship sped toward the stars, he knew that no matter what the future held, they would never be alone again. The Xathari family was saved, not by their own kind, but by the very humans they had once doubted. And in that, Zilith found a new kind of strength, one that came from the bonds of friendship and the unbreakable will to survive.